Welcome everyone to the School Improvement Institute webinar. This webinar is designed to provide SAP information for the focus and priority schools that are participating in the School Improvement Institute, or SI2. My name is Sue Reynolds. I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute. Please note on this screen that if you have not yet downloaded the one-page handout, that's found in the handout section on the control panel. We need you to do that. And if you are watching the archived version, if you're one of our focus and priority schools, we will email that, that handout to you along with a link to the archived version of this webinar. Or you can contact Tina Weissman at our staff, and Tina will be happy to send you that handout. So, okay. Let's move on. So just a quick reminder, in using the GoToWebinar control panel, if you click that little arrow, that'll make the control panel small, and then if you click it again, it will maximize the control panel. And don't forget to mute your microphone, and that way we're not hearing all the background noise or getting any feedback. That would be great. So remember, when that microphone icon is green, it means your mic is open and we can hear everything that's happening in the background. Okay, so want to look at the webinar agenda, and that actually is the handout from today. So, and I know if you're watching this live, you're also seeing me. I know on the archive version you don't see me. So I'm holding up the one-pager. We're going to be walking through this agenda, and it is there's a lot of information that we're going to be sharing, and I wanted you to have this agenda so you could kind of check off the things as we go along, and also take some notes on there. So if you're, let me just open that agenda up so you can see too. So this is the agenda that we're talking about. So if we walk through the agenda, you can see we're going to start out with an overview. We want to look at the focus and priority school requirements, what the DOE SAP template looks like, and then what our SAP report that you can generate from the SI2 system. You'll see that that follows exactly the template from DOE. We also would like to explain to you where we're getting the information that goes into the SAP report that you can generate from our system. So you've been actually submitting that information for the last 9 months, and we're just dropping it into this template. We also have some monitoring tools that I'll share with you, that where you can self-monitor your work against the things that need to go into the SAP. It's also the rubric items that that Tina uses, and then a very special monitoring tool we have is the turnaround principle intervention crosswalk. So I'll walk through that with you. That's really important. Then another requirement is to collaborate with your DOE outreach coordinator. That's part of DOE's requirements, so I'll go over that with you and how we've built that into our process. And then there's a new thing that's brand new, looking at the organizational structure for focus and priority schools. There's one kind of another group of turnaround monitors that we're going to drop into our organizational structure. And then finally, we'll show you how to download the SI2 SAP report. And there's actually two versions. There's one that will be the version that we've reviewed, and then you may decide that after we've reviewed it, you want to make some edits still. For a variety of reasons, and we'll show you how to also access a non-reviewed SAP. Okay, so that's kind of the agenda, and again, I would suggest that you just have that agenda right next to you, and then we can kind of be following along with that. So, okay. So let's look at just some basic information. First of all, what is an SAP? So SAP stands for Student Assistance Plan. It's really just a school improvement plan, but it aligns with the turnaround principles. So a regular school improvement plan doesn't necessarily align with the turnaround principles, although you know that all of our schools every single one of them does a self-audit against the turnaround principles. So most of our schools have the turnaround principles built into their school improvement plan, but the student assistance plan is a version of the school improvement plan that is aligned specifically with the turnaround principles. It is required by DOE for focus and priority schools. So if you're either focus or priority, you have to submit to DOE the SAP. So the question we always get is, so does that mean our school is required to submit both an SAP and an SIP? So yes, that's true. However, in our work, remember, we incorporate all external requirements into the online system. So when you've been developing your PAIs and your SMART goals and your root causes and your interventions, all along we've been making sure that your school improvement plan incorporates all the components of the SAP, PO 221, the Title I, school-wide or TAS if you're one of those, and then the odds and ends requirements from the state legislature and DOE for things like the graduation plan, the elementary reading plan, the Safe Schools plan. So all of those extra kind of myriad of requirements we've built into our system as well. So what that means is that when you're finished with our vision to action process, what you'll be able to do is push one button and an SIP will pop out, or you'll push another button and an SAP will pop out. So really, we've customized for each of our schools the online system so that you're meeting the requirements that your school is required to meet. So while you have to have two reports in the SIP system, in the SI2 system, it's really easy to do because you're just going to push one button and one template will pop out, and push another button and a different template will pop out. So, okay, then the other question that we often get from our schools is, when is the SAP due? So 2 years ago, when schools were developing the 14-15 plan SAP, that plan was due to DOE on November 30th. In the past school year, when schools were developing their 15-16 plan, which they're implementing right now, that wasn't due until just a couple months ago on March 1st. These deadlines that happen during the school year, we kind of prefer that our schools develop their improvement plans prior to the start of the school year, because when schools are developing their plans ready for a March 1st deadline, that means they only have 2 months worth of implementation. And I know, although we were hoping, we hope that all schools develop their improvement plans prior to the start of school year, we know that some schools, not our SI2 schools, but some schools waited until the deadline, March 1st, to actually do their work on their improvement planning, and that meant they only had 2 months to implement. So we don't know yet when the 2016-17 plan will be due. My guess is it's going to be due in the fall, but it might be October 15th, it might be November 30th again. We're guessing that it's going to be due in the fall, but we're not sure. And DOE hasn't announced that yet. So the important thing to note, though, is that for SI2 schools, it's really a moot point, because all of you will be finished with your 16-17 student achievement plans prior to June 1st. So just in a couple of weeks, you're going to finish the vision to action process, and everything that you need for our system to spit out an SAP will already be in there. So you will be able to create your SAP for 2016-17 prior to our June 1st deadline for all school improvement planning work to be completed. So, and again, we like that because then you have the benefit of being able to implement the interventions in that SAP throughout the entire school year next year. So, okay. So let's go into our agenda. Let's look at the overview. The first thing is to look at the DOE focus and priority school requirements. So I'm going to open those up here, and these are requirements that are on DOE's website. In fact, I just downloaded this last night, and there's a couple things that I want to show you. First of all, there are different requirements for focus schools and priority schools. And And our advice is that if you have any questions about whether or not your focus or priority, we suggest you call your DOE outreach coordinator and confirm that with them. So that's something that we would like DOE to tell you directly, and it's actually built into our process now that on our SIP uses page, on the uses page, when you say that you're a focus or a priority school, a question pops up and we say, have you confirmed this with your DOE outreach coordinator? So, okay, so for focus schools, one of the requirements was to identify a minimum of 2 priority areas for improvement, or PAIs. So you can think back, you've already done that. Great. Create SMART goals, you've done that. Determine specific interventions, no minimum requirement or minimum number. Align the interventions to the turnaround principles, you did that. No minimum number of turnaround principles. And then you can see this document that I downloaded last night is one that was originally created for a couple of years ago, but is still live as the focus and priority school requirements on the DOE website. Okay, then if I scroll down the priority schools, you can see, analyze school data, you've done that. Identify primary areas for improvement, a minimum of 3. So if you're a priority school, you did that. Create SMART goals. Create a minimum of 3 interventions. And this is the biggie. The interventions must be aligned to all 8 of the turnaround principles. So if I scroll up to the focus schools again, there is no minimum number, but for a priority school, all 8 of the turnaround principles have to be addressed. So I think you can kind of see that all of this has been built into your work this year as we progress through the vision to action process. And then one other thing that we wanted to point out is that another requirement is that you collaborate with your DOE outreach coordinator. And again, we've built that into our process too as part of the intervention step. So, okay, so we just wanted to show you that. So then, in terms of documenting for the Department of Ed that you've been compliant with these requirements, DOE is asking you to create a student achievement plan. So let's look at that. That looks like this. And for this past year, you had to cut and paste data out of our system into this Word doc. And for the coming year, for your 16-17 plan, it's all going to be automated. Just push that button and it'll pop out. And that is live right now. So just want to kind of look through this. So you can see this is the template. This is a Word document from DOE. This is their SAP template. But you can see that they've said they've asked you to identify your PAI number 1. And then what's the PAI focus? And there's the choices. What's the subject? There's the choices. What grade levels? What's the subgroup or improvement focus? And if you remember, when you entered PAIs into our system, you did checklists on these so that we could pull that information and put it into your SAP. So, okay, so those are your PAIs in the DOE template. Then they give you some information about how to create SMART goals. And then they've asked you to insert your previous year's achievement data. And what we've done here in our SI2 report for your SAP is we've just taken your achievement data report and we've dropped that data report into here. So this may be pretty long, this section. It may be 20 to 30 pages, depending on if you did additional data in our system or just the data that we asked you to monitor. But that'll be a pretty long section. And then you're asked to put in your SMART goals. So, and it's given you some example of SMART goals. And what we did here is we dropped in the SMART goals report from our system so that your outreach coordinator and you could see all of the SMART goals. And those SMART goals are sorted by PAI. I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so then this next part is instructions for completing the interventions, and it's saying priority schools have to hit all 8 principles, and interventions should align with those specific turnaround principles, and the outreach coordinators will monitor progress on these interventions that are listed. So those are things that we kind of wanted to pull out and just make you aware of from the DOE template. And then the template that they gave you, we have copied exactly into our auto-generated SAP. So the intervention, you're going to put in a brief description, evidence that you'll utilize to show the success of the intervention, indicators, to which indicators above this the intervention align, and who's the driver, or who's going to kind of be the point person for this intervention. So, and then action steps, target dates. So I think you can see that as you've been recently entering your interventions into the system, you've been asked to address all of these questions so that we could complete this report on your behalf for you. So, okay, now as I scroll down, here's one thing that we weren't expecting based on the requirements information that was published by DOE, and that is we knew that you were going to have interventions that addressed each of the turnaround principles if you were a priority school. However, the SAP guidelines said that your strategies or interventions must be included for the following. So this word must, that is not a should or suggested. Must or shall means you have to do it. So so we've adjusted, as you know, our online system so that you would, when you entered an intervention, you would check off which of these indicators did the intervention address. So you'd enter an intervention, you'd say this intervention is going to address the turnaround principle number 1, and then all the indicators would pop up, and then you would select the indicators that that intervention addressed. And I'll show you that in the system in a second. But I just wanted to make you aware that this is where all those interventions are coming from. Remember these interventions, because I'm going to show you in the system how we're having you align with the interventions. So there's turnaround principle number 1. Here's number 2, and you can see same thing. Strategies must be included for the following, and there's 3 indicators. Principle number 3, effective instruction. Strategies must be included for the following indicators. So for all 8 of the turnaround principles, we need to make sure that your interventions are aligning with every single one of these indicators. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't think so, because remember, if you're being required to do that, you're a priority school, and you are not achieving the way that you would hope to, and I know that's important to you to improve, just like it is to us and to the Department of Ed. The turnaround principles we think are really good, and we also think that the indicators for each of the turnaround principles, that if a school were addressing all those indicators, that would be a pretty cool thing. And we highly suspect that if you address these indicators and address the turnaround principles well, your achievement will go up. The turnaround principles and the indicators align very well with ASA's elements of high achieving schools, so chances are you're already doing a lot of these things from your work with us. So I don't think this is a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a good thing. But we just need to make sure that you're thinking about all those indicators and really looking at how you're going to incorporate those indicators into your school improvement plan. So as you're thinking about interventions that would do those things, as always, feel free to contact Tina Weissman and our staff, but you can also contact your DOE outreach coordinator to kind of talk with them about how to integrate all of those indicators into your school improvement plan. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down then past all 8 of the indicators, and on the very last page of DOE's Student Achievement Plan, they're asking you to create, to assign a monitor to each one of the turnaround principles. So one of the things that we're going to do to change our organizational structure for our focus and priority schools is to ask you to create these turnaround principle monitors, to assign those to people. Those turnaround principle monitors, their job will be to monitor the implementation of the interventions that are aligned with their turnaround principle. So if I'm the monitor for school leadership and I know that these 8 interventions are all dealing with school leadership, it's my job to just kind of monitor. And then DOE is suggesting, and this kind of fits in well with our work too, is that at each of your leadership team meetings, or this would be your steering team meetings, 2 groups or 2 of the monitors will provide progress updates and next steps for their turnaround principles. So if I'm the school leadership monitor, I'm monitoring the implementation of the interventions that address school leadership, and then I'm meeting with the steering team to talk about how are those interventions going and what are the next things that we need to do in order to really beef up our school leadership. Or same thing for school climate and effective instruction. So every single one of these principles has a point person that's responsible for monitoring and thinking about that principle. And again, you know, we love that idea. It corresponds really well with our organizational structure. So that's something that we'll ask you to do as you incorporate the turnaround principles into your school improvement plan and your SAP. Okay, so that is DOE's template. Now, when you spit this out of our system, it's going to look like this. Okay, so you can see Student Achievement Plan, and this is coming out of our system. So all you had to do to get this was push a button. So it comes out. Here's the table of contents, and one little thing we added is here's the same contents as the DOE template that we just looked at. But to help your DOE outreach coordinator, we've just written a little paragraph about how these things came about. So, you know, they'll see your 2 PAIs, and then there'll be a paragraph that says, here's what we did to create those PAIs. Or they'll see your SMART goals, and it'll say, here's how we identified our SMART goals. So, okay. So if I just scroll down, see here's that PAI. It looks exactly like the DOE template, except we've just taken information that you've entered into the system and kind of plugged it in. There's PAI number 2. Here's that description of how the PAIs were developed. Here's the achievement data report, and again, I'm in as demo school, and their demo school doesn't have any achievement data entered for it, but your achievement data reports will go in there. And again, this could be a long section. Here's your SMART goals, and notice that we have first put in, here's the PAI, and then here's the SMART goals for the PAI. So the PAI is, I'm working on student proficiency in math for 7th graders, and specifically 7th graders in the bottom 25%. And then here's my first SMART goal. I want to specifically address mastery of the ratio standard on I-STEP for 7th graders. So, and then here's all the information that goes into creating that SMART goal. And then, so there may be several there will be several SMART goals here for each of your PAIs. Okay. Then here is your turnaround principles, and we've just copied what DOE had in their template, and then you can see we have created a table where when you put your intervention in, the information that you entered will drop into this template for DOE. So this template that you can spit out of your system and the template from DOE look exactly the same. Okay, so that's that. Then, just very quickly, I just want to remind you where we are coming up with all this information that goes into the report, because when you spit out the report, everything's going to be in there. So I just want to remind you how we got that information. So I'm going to go to the online system, and again, I'm in as demo school. And for example, when one thing that goes into the SAP are your PAIs, and if I scroll down to the goals section, um, you can see that as a this demo school is an alumni school, so they're updating their PAIs. And when I entered the PAIs, add a new PAI, you can see that here's where we get that information to put into the SAP. Here's the PAI focus. You checked one of those. Here's the subject. You checked one of those. Grade levels, subgroup or improvement focus, and then the rationale, and then the external expectations. So we use this information to fill out the PAI on the report. So that's the PAI. If I go to SMART goals, you can see, getting a little warning here, you can see that when I add a SMART goal, we put in the, so it's a SMART goal for this PAI, we put in the grade level of the class, the demographics for that SMART goal, benchmarks, historical data, and then external expectations. And so this is actually on this one, these two align with the elementary reading plan, but then the SMART goal has this SMART goal has students who have not met AMO as the student group. So that this is telling us that you're meeting an external requirement with this SMART goal, and then you saved. So that was SMART goals. In the interventions, when you put in the interventions, this, I was just going to add an intervention to just show you, remind you what you did. We put in the title description, the root cause that this intervention was going to address, the student group focus, which ASA element of high achieving schools is addressed, the impact area, how much energy it's going to take to put this intervention in place, and then you saved. Then in the next tab, just as a reminder, this is where you connected this intervention with a turnaround principle. So on external expectations, and you can see you could connect this intervention with turnaround principles or with PL 221 or the graduation plan, reading plan, high ability plan, school tech plan, technology as a learning tool, Title I. But for this presentation, we're talking about the turnaround principles in the SAPs. So look what happens when I click, let's just click school culture. So I'm saying this intervention is going to address the school culture and climate turnaround principle. And then those interventions pop up. So I would click an intervention or an indicator. I think I said intervention. The indicators pop up. So I'm going to click an indicator that this intervention meets, and then I'm going to save. And then the final part was to tell us how you plan to develop this intervention. So initial preparation, you are saying down in the additional intervention development needs, notice that intervention evaluation is already checked. That's because you clicked that this was meeting a turnaround principle. Evaluation is required for interventions associated with turnaround principles so that we can show that this is a proven intervention, that there's data behind it that shows that this intervention is changing practices and raising achievement in your school. So, so automatically, if it's a turnaround intervention, this gets checked. And then it's up to you if you want to further develop your professional development for the intervention, if you need resources, funding, or putting in tasks. So, and then you would save. So again, we've tried to create a system, not try, we have created a system that prompts you to do the things that you need to do in order to think through decisions in the manner that the Department of Ed would like you to with regard to the turnaround principles, and then also to develop an SAP that meets all the requirements for DOE. So, okay, so those are interventions. And then one thing more that I want to show you, and this is brand new. I'm going to go back to the process page. And in the intervention step, and again, this is the first time we're announcing this, and it will be in our monthly update as well, and I'm sure Tina will be prompting you as well to do this, is to enter the turnaround principle monitors. So I'm just going to click on this, and each of the turnaround principles comes up, and we just want to know which of your steering team members is going to be assigned to monitor that principle, to monitor the interventions, and to just be keeping track and to be the flag waver for that principle. So okay, so monitoring tools, and I'm down to step 3 on the on your agenda. So remember, one monitoring tool we have are rubric items. So these are things that Tina checks, and we also know that you check them. So when I open up the rubric, say for interventions, you'll see when I scroll down that I have interventions for turnaround principles and intervention crosswalk. The interventions align with the turnaround principles selected, and for each targeted turnaround principle, so it'll be all 8 for the priority schools or less than 8 for the focus schools, but for each targeted turnaround principle, all indicators defined by DOE have been addressed by interventions in a manner that holds high promise for turning around the school with regard to specific turnaround principles. So we're looking at those things with the interventions crosswalk report. And let me go back. The rubric and the crosswalk report kind of work together. So on the crosswalk report, remember, after you have completed all of your interventions, then we look through all of these crosswalk reports to make sure that your interventions are doing what you want them to do. And one of the crosswalk reports is called the Turnaround Principles Intervention Crosswalk Report. So before finalizing your interventions, you clicked on that report, and you can see that here are your interventions. And again, this is demo school, so we've not created all of the interventions. We just put it up so we could demo with it. But here's your interventions. Here's the turnaround principles. First question says, does at least one intervention address this turnaround principle? So if I'm a priority school, I'm seeing, okay, I've got at least one intervention for all of them except for staffing practices and use of data. So I need to look at this and add some interventions to address these turnaround principles as well. And then the second question, does at least one intervention address each of the turnaround principles indicators? So I have, let's just look at number 8. I have interventions in for family and community engagement, but I have not addressed all of the indicators. If I look down, I can see this check tells me that I have one intervention that's addressing family and community engagement, and that's the parent night intervention that I put in there. So, so let's just scroll down to the next section. And in the next section then, for each turnaround principle, it has, here are the indicators and which of your interventions are meeting the indicators. So you can see for school leadership, I'm in a herd of trouble right now. This is all that were in my my school improvement plan because I'm not addressing the indicators. Same thing for school culture and climate. So let's go down and look at that one we started with. Yeah, so here's that family and community engagement. So you can see my parent night hit this first indicator, but not the second one. So I'm going to need to either tweak parent night so that it involves community groups and families of students who are struggling academically, or I'm going to need to add some other kind of intervention. So this is an abbreviation up here of the indicators, and here's the full text of them so you can see exactly what they say. So again, for our priority and focus schools, this is a lot of indicators to be covering, but again, you're looking at your priority school, your focus school. There's a lot of work to be done. So we think it's really good that you're looking at these indicators, thinking about them, and really trying to think, how do I incorporate these things into our culture, into our practice? Um, and then the other thing is that we know that you have been working with your DOE outreach coordinator, so chances are that in your discussions with your outreach coordinator, you've already come up with interventions and strategies that are going to address all of these things. It's just a matter of documenting them in the system by entering them as interventions and then checking off the principle and the indicators that intervention addresses. So, okay. And that's something that we'll be coaching you on as well, because when Tina looks through that rubric, she's not able to say that all of the indicators are addressed unless there are checks in each of these columns. So okay. So looking down at the agenda, we have covered up to one thing I forgot. Let me go back. The outreach coordinator collaboration, number 4. Let me go back to the vision action process page, and in that, this is an intervention step. We asked you to confirm that you've had a discussion with your DOE outreach coordinator regarding your tentative interventions. So your outreach coordinator can say to you, that really doesn't really address that principle the way as strongly as we would like it to. So we think it's really important that your DOE outreach coordinator has that ability to consult with you. So we put that in as a step, and if I click on the first step or the first info link there, here is a link that goes straight to their Division of School Improvement Outreach page, and you can see there's how they break up the state, and there's the staff directory's name down there, so you can contact your person. And then on the second thing there, this is where you can go to print your intervention report. And so if you're doing a sit down with your outreach coordinator, or if you want to send them electronically your interventions, you could do this. So here is the description, the root cause, the student group focus, AC elements, impact area, energy level, turnaround principles. So yeah, so that's just a way for you to send them all of your interventions, and they can see how you're addressing the turnaround principles. The other thing you might send them is the crosswalk report to show them that you've got something in there for all of the indicators. Okay, and then finally on the entry page there, you're just telling us which steering team member is submitting this form, and you're confirming that you've sought guidance from your DOE outreach coordinator, and then you're writing in here what was the result of this discussion or the consultation with the outreach coordinator. So, and then you're clicking confirm. Okay, so that's how we're doing the outreach coordinator collaboration. I've already talked about the new organizational structure, but here's the new part, that we're assigning a turnaround monitor to each of the turnaround principles, and that turnaround monitor will then report to the steering team. Okay, that brings us down to downloading the SI2 report. I want to just talk about this first, and then I'll show you where the button is to download the report. So when we go to download, you're going to see that you can download an ASA reviewed SAP. And as soon as you're finished with the vision to action process and balloons appear on your process page, at that point in time, we know that based on our read, what you've put into our system would allow you to complete a full SAP. So at the point in time that you get balloons, we can then say, based on our review, it appears that this version of the SAP meets all SAP requirements for focus and priority schools. And notice that we've worded that as it appears that. We're not making a guarantee because each monitor or each consultant, having worked at the Department of Ed and having done this ASA work for a long time, I know that each consultant reviews things in a slightly different way. So while based on our discussions and our read of the legislation, the rules and regs, and everything that's come out of DOE, we're saying we think you're okay. But when somebody at DOE reads that, they might have just a little bit different interpretation and they might want you to tweak things. So we're not saying that your SAP is approved. We're just saying it looks pretty good to us. And if when you're talking to DOE, you discover that there's something that maybe we need to be looking at differently, please let us know that, and then we can either have a conversation ourselves with DOE or incorporate that into our work. But again, having done this for about 20 years, if there's 8 outreach coordinators at DOE, even with the best efforts to make sure that everything gets reviewed the same, you know, you're bringing personalities into it, and it will always be just a little bit different. So, okay, so that's that. But the important thing that we want you to see on this part is that when you see an ASA reviewed SAP, that means that at that point in time that you got balloons because you're finished with the process and everything met criteria, we took a snapshot of all of your work and made it into an SAP. Now, it's also possible to print a non-reviewed SAP. And what we're saying is if you download that report, we're saying this version of the SAP has not been reviewed by ASA and may or may not meet all of the SAP requirements for focus and priority schools. We just don't know because we didn't review that. So why would you want to create a non-reviewed SAP? Well, maybe this. Maybe at the point in time that you got balloons, you thought everything was finished, we approved it, looks good to us, and then you decided, you know, I really want to strengthen this part a little bit, so we're going to add 2 or 3 more interventions. So you've changed the SAP. Now you want to print an updated SAP. We're not going to review it again. We reviewed it once already and we said it was okay. So we don't feel a need to review it again. But if you make changes, you may want to you may want to print a revised SAP. Be very careful if you're doing that. If you start taking things out of your SAP, it could be that you're taking out things that are needed, and because it's not reviewed, you know, we would have no way of doing that. So another reason you might want to do a non-reviewed SAP is just see what it looks like. So you could download today, I'll show you how to do that in 2 seconds. You could download today an SAP. It's not going to be reviewed. It probably won't be complete because you haven't finished your work with us yet for the year. But if you just want to see what one looks like, you could download a non-reviewed SAP. And then there are a few schools, like a very small number, that are participating in SI2 and did not contract with us to do reviews. These are schools that have been in SI2 for like 15 years, and they are so familiar with our process and the online system that they don't need that extra help. So, but if that's the case, those schools would not get ever an ASA reviewed SAP because we never review their work. And again, there's only, you know, just less than a handful of schools that do that. But you know, this would give you a way to print in a non-reviewed SAP. Okay, last thing, let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to go to the process page. I'm scrolling all the way down to the bottom, and the very last step says submit your SAP and the SAP if applicable to DOE. Notice that we don't have a month in yet, and we don't have any tools that would take you to the DOE website where these things get uploaded, or you know, instructions for how to do that, because that has not been announced yet by DOE. So I'm just going to, let's say, just going to go to step 3, download the SAP. So I'm going to click this download button. And you can see I actually downloaded a non-reviewed SAP yesterday. I have done a little bit more work, let's say, and now I want to see what it looks like. So I'm going to generate a new PDF. And there's a note, this PDF will not be reviewed by ASA, so today's date will appear here, right below here after I've created it. And if I already had balloons and I already had an SAP that had been reviewed by ASA, the date for that one would appear here. So I would have an option of opening the one that was reviewed by ASA or opening one that's not reviewed by ASA. So in the first time you logged in, there's not going to be any dates in here. Okay, so I'm going to generate a new PDF, and I'm getting some reminders. The 2016-17 school reviewed student achievement plan was already created on 5/11. So I have an option that I could download that if I wanted to, but I don't. I've made some changes and I want to see a new one now. So we understand that we are generating a 16-17 SAP that will not be reviewed by ASA and may not meet ASA standards for school improvement planning and or external expectations for school improvement planning. And we understand that the existing non-reviewed SAP will be overwritten. So when I create a new one, the one that I created yesterday is going to be overwritten. Okay, so I'm going to generate the PDF, and it's processing. So take a minute because the computer is pulling all kinds of information. And now I'm going to download the Student Achievement Plan PDF. And there it is. So you can see how simple that was. Now I can just save it, and then when I'm asked to submit that to DOE, I can just send it to DOE, all set. So I hope that those of you who had to do the cut and paste between our system and the SAP plan and spent 8 hours or whatever doing that last year, I hope that you're cheering right now. We wanted to save you a lot of time, and you can see that took literally just a few seconds to create. So, okay, if I go back to, let's go back to the process page, and scroll down again, and I'm going to download the Student Achievement Plan, and you can see that here's today's date. So it's been it's the one that was in there previously has been replaced with the non-reviewed plan that I just created. And again, when balloons appear on your process page, then the date of the one that we reviewed will appear here. So you can always open up the one that we reviewed and we said we thought was okay, or one that you created and has not been reviewed. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, so again, we're not sure when this SAP is going to be due. The nice thing is that you're going to have it available by the end of the school year, by June 1st. As soon as your SIP is finished, your SAP will be finished as well. So what do you do with this SAP on June 1st? Well, one of the things you could do is just hold on to it until DOE says we'd like you to submit it. And then just send it to them. Last year you submitted as an email attachment, and we're anticipating that's how this will happen again. So, if DOE says, and sometimes, you don't get a lot of notice on that, so if DOE says in 3 weeks we want your SAP, you can think, oh, I've already got that, and then just email attach it to them. The other thing you could do, and this is what I would suggest, this is what I would do, is I would contact your outreach coordinator at DOE right now, and I'd say, we've already finished our SAP because we wanted the interventions in it to be implemented throughout the entire school year. So we wanted to get it done now so we could hit the ground running with those interventions in August. And I'd like to send it to you now so you could see, what's in there, and you can be kind of following along with us as we implement those interventions. So that's what I would do. I think it's really important that schools start to implement the interventions right at the start of the school year. And I think it would be nice for your outreach coordinator to see that your school's on the ball and that your plan's already finished and you're already implementing. I think that would be really cool. So, okay. And finally, don't forget that Tina is here to answer any questions that you have. The one question that she will not answer is, are we a focus or priority school? We'd like that answer to come from DOE, and we want you to confirm that with DOE. But all the questions about the online system and how we enter PAIs and SMART goals and root causes and interventions and how we link the interventions to turnaround principles and turnaround principle indicators, Tina can help you with all of that. So as you're finishing up the year, we know that especially if you're a priority school and you're having to address all of those indicators, that you've got some work to do. So please use Tina. Consider her a member of your steering team, part of your team, and please make sure that you call on her. So I think that's it. And thank you for participating, and we're very excited to be able to help our schools not only develop a school improvement plan that addresses your achievement data goals and your root causes, but also aligns with all the external expectations that the federal DOE and our state DOE have for you. So we're hoping that we're saving you a ton of time so that you can spend that time really thinking carefully with your school improvement council, with your steering team, with your student body about what needs to happen at your school to raise student achievement. So with that, I will sign off. Thank you for listening, and please don't hesitate to call us with any questions. Thank you.